Hello everyone, this is Melanie from Melanie B's Creative Studio, and today I want to introduce you to the Paint Anywhere Gingerbread Village 8x10 mini kit. This portable storage box holds everything that comes in the kit neatly and organized. The kit includes 5 paintbrushes, vacuum sealed paints in 12 gorgeous colors, a photo reference, and this canvas is already stretched on a wooden stretcher bar. And the texture is beautiful. It's already primed with a white gesso, but I always prime with a clear gesso as well. But I do love the fact that this has already been pre-stretched on a stretcher bar for us, so we can stick it in a frame or display it on an easel when we're done. Okay, so let's paint. If you want to pause the video now and grab some supplies, this is the perfect time to do that. I'm going to grab a cup of water with a stir stick and a rubber scrubber in the bottom. You can use the paintbrushes that came with the kit. I'm going to use my Melanie B's flat brushes. And of course, I'm going to use everything that came with the kit. A lot of this video will be in super high speed, but I want to go ahead and point out that I'm going to be using the size 2 Melanie B's flat brush in the largest cells. It allows me to get the most coverage in the larger areas. Then you'll notice I'll switch to either a size 2/0 or a 5/0 in the smaller areas. You will notice me rotate mine over in different directions and use the edge to get into the smallest detail spaces. One final tip before I go silent for a little bit is that you want to always use the largest brush that you're comfortable using in a cell. What this achieves is less stroke marks so that you get a smoother layer. I'm not going to be adding texture on this particular layer because it is in the background. The sky and the mountains are way off in the distance, so we're not going to be seeing any of that texture in this particular part of our scenery. The only time you're going to see me use a very small brush in these areas is when I'm up against some very small detail areas, and sometimes when I'm being lazy and I don't want to switch brushes. On this part of the white, I do want to add a little texture because this is a snow-capped mountain. So I'm using the 2/0 smaller brush. You'll notice that it's creating a little bit of like a whipped snow effect, and that's why I'm having to dip so often into my paint pot. I did delete a lot of the part where you're seeing me dip into the paint pot over and over again, just for time purposes. You'll notice that it does create the effect and the illusion of textured dimensional surface. Here I'm using the size 0 brush because it is a larger area, but I can still get that same dimension by getting an extra amount of paint on this brush and applying it in a little bit thicker application and not smoothing it out. Let's go in with a really super tight, cool angled close-up. I've got my 5/0 super mini flat detail brush, and I'm going to dip into the paint pot, leaving all of that excess paint on my brush. You don't want to dip so far into your paint pot that you're getting the paint into the ferrule, but take all of the paint that you have on the brush without wiping any excess off, and then pat it into the cell, leaving all of that dimension and texture. You can see right off the bat how it creates such a beautiful depth and realism just by doing this simple technique. Now, when this dries, I can go back and add even more layers and get more depth and more dimension. This tree is actually behind the gingerbread houses, but I imagine that it is kind of overlapping some of the roofs, so it could almost come out further past some of these houses if I wanted to. So you just have to use your own creativity and your imagination to decide how much depth and dimension you want to add in your painting. Keep in mind that the more texture and the more paint you add, the longer this will take to dry. So don't accidentally put your hand in this or smudge it or smear it. You'll notice I work from top to bottom, left to right, so that I don't accidentally put my own hands in this. I've done it before, just like everybody else has done it. You'll notice me lift my hand up right here. I even make sure that I'm working in a situation where I don't put myself in the position of getting my hands in my own paint. But yes, this will take a little bit longer to dry. Okay, let's decorate our tree. This is some of my favorite stuff here. So I wanted these ornaments to really pop. I wanted them to look kind of round, so I'm using that same 5/0 flat brush. And I know a lot of people are like, why do you use flat brushes for everything? I don't know. Once I started using them, I could not go back to round brushes. This one is a flat brush. Yep, can't believe it. So even doing these little tiny round dots, you can see that is a flat brush. But I get very precise with this brush, so you use whatever you are comfortable with. I really love just adding little heaps of paint to get the most dimension here with the ornaments and the lights. You can go back once this is dry and add even more dimension and really make those ornaments come alive and look very round and three-dimensional. The biggest trick to painting things with dimension is to know what is in the background and what is in the foreground, because anything in the foreground is going to have the most texture. Everything in the background is going to have the least. So in this case, we want to just imagine that all of these gingerbread houses have icing on their rooftops, and all of the Christmas trees have super rough and sharp pine needles. Is the object in your image, is it soft? Is it fluffy? Is it sharp? Is it hair or fur? That is how you know whether it needs texture, dimension, depth. Make it feel real by observing it. The closer it is, the more of that it's going to have. The further off it is, the more blurred and the more soft it's going to appear. You can see I really layered up these pink hearts to make them look like gumdrops, because this roof is going to look like it is covered in whipped icing when I'm done. One of my favorite new products to work with to get the most amazing dimension is this Josie Lewis and Bree Reese modeling paste. It is available at Michael's, and this is the only place I think they have it. I'm mixing it with the paint color that I need by using a palette knife or a mixing spatula. Then I'm going to use what I mixed up on that spatula and my paintbrush, and I'm going to apply this modeling paste directly to my painting. This gives me such extra dimension. You talk about a 3D effect. Now, I do want to express to you the importance of washing your tools and your paintbrushes as soon as possible once you're done with this modeling paste. In addition, this does dry, very matte finished, so if you want to use it alone, you can do that. On another painting that I've used this on, I put down the modeling paste by itself and I just layered it up super thick. Then I went back and I put my paint on top of it. So you can either use this alone or you can mix it with your paint. When you add the paint over the top, it gives you the sheen of whatever paint you're using, but it is very matte when it dries on its own. When I'm painting this particular tree, you'll notice that it's only got two colors and they are large spaces of color. So when I'm applying this particular paint, I'm putting it down with a larger brush, which is the size 1, but I'm using the chisel edge of the brush to give it the effect of the pine needles. I'm going to paint this entire tree and allow this first layer to partially dry. In the meantime, I'll paint the smaller tree to the right and add its thickness and its pine needle effect at the same time. Then I want to come back to this one and give it a little bit more gradient by blending these two colors together so those two colors don't look so chunky and they're more cohesive. Okay, so I've magically added a little bit more of the paint, and now I'm going to take a smaller brush, and this is the 2/0, and I'm going to start moving the two colors around together and just working them until I feel like they are not necessarily blending, but just making them feel like they're working better together, if that makes sense, until I feel like it looks right. This is more of just a visual thing than a particular thing I can teach you. I just want it to look a little bit more balanced. I want a little more darkness on the bottom, a little more lightness on the top. And overall, I was very happy with the way that tree turned out. Well, you guys, this was such a fun piece to paint. I love this piece with texture. You do not have to paint it with texture. It's actually designed not to be painted with texture. It's a very stylistic type of painting. So you don't have to do it this way. It actually took me about 2 weeks to paint this because I did add the extra dimension with the modeling paste and layers of paint. I just made sure that I allowed extra time for drying. But typically, in comparison to the normal 16 by 20 size paint by number kits we usually complete, this one is by far a much quicker project. I just completely enjoyed this so much. This one is going on an easel on my countertop for display for the entire winter season. This is not just a Christmas only piece for me. This is a winter piece. I hope you guys love this and that the tips and tricks I provided were helpful for you. Please be sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, share it if you think it will help someone else, and I hope to see you back soon. Thanks as always for watching.